My name is Margaret Rivers. I'm 28 years old, and the night I planned to celebrate love, I ended up performing its autopsy. The kitchen smelled like rosemary and seared scallops, his favorite. I'd spent hours on this dinner, poured the expensive wine he always joked was too fancy for Tuesdays, even lit the vanilla candles that used to make him smile. But the air between us wasn't romantic. It was a stale, suffocating silence that clung like smoke. Across from me, Justin sat hunched over his phone, thumbs twitching, the blue glow flickering across his face. I watched him type, pause, grin slightly, then type again. The scallops were cooling, the butter stiffening, but he didn't notice. I tried to pretend it didn't hurt. I told myself he was just distracted from work, but deep down I already knew this wasn't work. This was someone else. Justin, I said, my voice calm, almost steady. Can we talk? He looked up slowly, sighing, as if I'd interrupted something sacred. About what? Our anniversary, maybe? Or the fact that you've barely looked at me all night? He smirked, setting his phone face down like he was granting me a rare favor. You're overthinking again, Lena. Can't a guy text without being interrogated? I folded my napkin, staring at the folds like they were easier to understand than him. Depends who you're texting. For a long moment, silence filled the room, thick as smoke. Then, with a lazy kind of cruelty, he leaned back and said, You want honesty? Fine. It's Tessa, from work. The name hit harder than I'd expected, even though I'd suspected it for weeks. Tessa, the marketing assistant with perfect eyeliner and a laugh that echoed too long. Justin shrugged, watching me closely, like my heartbreak was a show he didn't want to miss. We've been hanging out. She's fun. Not everything has to be so serious, Margaret. I blinked, keeping my face still. Inside, something fragile cracked, but didn't shatter it, froze instead. And what are we then? He tilted his head as if he genuinely had to think about it. You're steady. You're the kind of woman a man marries. Tessa's the kind you have fun with first. A cold laugh escaped before I could stop it. So I'm your what training wheels? He grinned faintly, almost proud. Don't take it personally. You're my backup plan. If things don't work out with Tessa, at least I know you'll still be here. For a second, the world went utterly still. The clock on the wall ticked once, twice. The hum of the refrigerator became deafening. My backup plan, I repeated each word, slow, deliberate. He took another sip of wine. It's a compliment, really. You're dependable. Dependable, safe, predictable. The same words he used to praise me were now weapons dull but deliberate. I wanted to scream, to throw the plate, to ask him how someone could twist love into something so cheap, but instead I just stopped feeling. I set my fork down gently. You think I'll stay? He gave me a patronizing half smile. You always do. That's when I felt it, the shift, the quiet clarity that comes right before everything burns. I stood up slowly, the chair legs scraping against the hardwood. Then tonight's your plot twist. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? But I didn't answer. I walked to the bedroom, each step feeling more like an escape than a retreat. Inside, the air still smelled faintly of his cologne amber and arrogance. My reflection in the mirror looked unfamiliar. The loyal girlfriend, the fixer, the fool. Not anymore. I pulled my suitcase from under the bed. My movements were calm, mechanical jeans, shirts, toiletries. I left behind the sweaters he bought, the perfume he said made me smell expensive. They belonged to a woman who tolerated being a spare part in her own relationship. The door creaked open behind me. Margaret. What the hell are you doing? Packing. He laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. You're seriously running away because I told you the truth. God, you're dramatic. I zipped the suitcase, still not looking at him. No. I'm walking away because I finally believed you. What does that even mean? He snapped, stepping closer. I turned to face him, calm as ice. It means I used to think you were my future. Turns out you're just a bad chapter, and I'm done rereading it. He scoffed, crossing his arms. You'll regret this, Lena. No one's going to put up with you like I did. I smiled softly, almost pitying him. That's exactly what I'm counting on. I brushed past him, the scent of his cologne fading as I stepped into the hallway. My hand didn't tremble when I took my keys. My voice didn't crack when I said goodbye, Justin. He called after me, voice sharp-wounded. You'll come crawling back. But I didn't look back. I didn't slam the door, didn't give him the satisfaction of a scene. I just closed it, quietly. Outside, the night air hit me cold, alive, real. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. In my chest beneath the ache, something new stirred. Not rage, not grief, something simpler. Freedom. And as I walked away, leaving behind the dinner, the wine and the man who once promised forever, a single thought echoed in my mind. He thought I was his backup plan. He never realized he'd just been deleted from mine. The first week after walking out felt like living underwater. Everything moved in slow motion. Voices, muffled colors, dimmed, time, distorted. I moved into Mia's apartment, my best friend since college. Her place smelled like fresh coffee and chaos, warm, messy, alive. She didn't ask for details. She just opened the door, handed me a spare blanket, and said softly, "You can crash here as long as you need." That first night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, trying to replay everything, to find the exact moment Justin stopped loving me, or maybe when I stopped mattering. The truth was, I couldn't tell. His toothbrush was still in my bag. I stared at it for a long time, then threw it in the trash. The silence after that felt cleaner. Days blurred. I went to work, smiled at colleagues, answered emails, pretended I was fine. But every little thing reminded me of him, the sound of his ringtone in a coffee shop, a stranger wearing his cologne. Even the word backup stung like a splinter under the skin. I didn't cry, not because I was strong, because I was numb. One night, Mia found me sitting at the kitchen counter, scrolling through old photos. She sat beside me, no judgment in her eyes, just quiet compassion. "Delete them," she said gently. "I can't," I whispered. "It's like erasing proof that it was real." She took a sip of her wine. "Maybe it was real to you, but that doesn't mean it still deserves space in your phone, or your heart." I stared at the screen. Our smiling faces stared back the beach, the road trips, the fake perfect couple pose. Then I hit select all and delete. Just like that, the screen went blank. It felt like stepping into fresh air after being trapped in smoke. A few days later, I caught sight of Justin online, a photo someone had tagged. Him and Tessa sitting in a rooftop bar, champagne in hand. Her lipstick was the same shade she wore the night she flirted with him at his office party. His caption read, "New beginnings." Sometimes the right person shows up when you least expect it. My stomach twisted, but only for a moment. Then I laughed quietly, bitterly. New beginnings. For him, endings were just costume changes. That night I opened my laptop and searched flight prices to the coast, something I'd always wanted to do, but he'd convinced me not to. "Too expensive," he'd said. "Besides, you hate traveling alone." Turns out I didn't. I didn't book the flight yet, but I bookmarked it. It felt symbolic, a digital promise to myself. By the third week, I started running again. Every morning before sunrise, I laced my sneakers and jogged along the riverside. The first few days, my chest burned and my legs screamed. But there was something cleansing about the pain. It was mine, not something he caused or controlled. Mia teased me one morning when she found me sweating in the kitchen. "You look possessed." By discipline, I said, grinning for the first time in weeks. "Good. Let the demon of self-respect take over for a while." We both laughed. It felt awkward, unfamiliar, but good. Then one night, Mia came home from work with her phone half hidden in her hand. Her face gave it away. "What is it?" I asked. She hesitated, then turned the screen toward me. It was a post, Justin and Tessa again, except this time the caption wasn't his. It was hers. A photo of them kissing with the words, "Not every ex can handle seeing you glow up." For a second, my breath hitched. A cruel little part of me wanted to reply, to remind them both what glow up looked like when it's built on betrayal. But I didn't. I just smiled faintly and said, "She can have the spotlight. I'm busy rebuilding the stage." Mia raised her glass. "To deleting idiots from your life." "To deleting," I said. Our glasses clinked. The next morning, something inside me shifted. I deleted his number, blocked his socials, even changed my phone wallpaper a sunrise I'd taken years ago, but never noticed how beautiful it was. Then I did something impulsive. I opened my email, found the folder labeled E+me, and hovered over delete folder. My finger hesitated, trembling, not from sadness, but from finality. Then I clicked. Gone. The silence after that wasn't hollow anymore. It was spacious, like I'd finally made room for myself. That night before bed, I wrote in my journal, for the first time since the breakup. The words came out like a confession. I spent years being the calm in someone else's chaos. I forgot that peace belongs to me too. I closed the notebook, exhaled deeply, and smiled, really smiled. The ghost of the relationship was fading. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't haunted anymore. It had been a month since the dinner that ended everything. A month since I'd walked away from the table from the man who called me his backup plan. And in that month, something strange had happened. Silence had become my sanctuary. No more late-night arguments, no more passive-aggressive sighs, no more waiting for his texts that never came. My days were quiet, predictable, peaceful. I thought I'd finally escaped his gravity. Until the universe decided to send a little update about Justin Cole's great new life. It was Mia who told me. She walked into our apartment one afternoon holding her phone like a tabloid headline she didn't want to show me. I wasn't going to tell you, she said, but you'll probably find out anyway. Just rip off the Band-Aid, I sighed. She handed me her phone. On the screen was a photo Justin and Tessa again smiling under golden lights. The caption read, "To love without limits, hatch foreverus." I almost laughed. The man who couldn't commit to a dinner reservation was hashtagging forever. But it wasn't the photo that got me, it was the date. 2 weeks after our breakup. 2 weeks. I scrolled through their timeline, watching my 3-year relationship being replaced by selfies and captions about healing and finding real love. He's fast, Mia muttered, sipping her coffee. He's desperate, I corrected. Some people confuse replacement with recovery. I handed the phone back and smiled, not bitter, just amused. It was like watching a bad rerun of a show I'd finally stopped caring about. But karma, as it turns out, doesn't believe in cliffhangers. A few days later, I got a text from a mutual friend, Sophie, someone who'd always liked me more than him. "Sophie, hey, just thought you'd want to know. Justin and Tessa are over. Big fight. He moved out." I stared at the screen, blinking. Not shocked, just validated. Me. Oh, that was quick. Sophie. Yeah. Apparently she found out he was messaging another woman. She trashed his place. Me poetic. I put my phone down and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no gloating, just peace, like the final line of a story I no longer had to read. Still that night, I found myself thinking back to all the ways I'd bent to keep him happy. The job offer I'd declined because he didn't want to do long distance. The friendships I'd let fade because he thought my friends didn't get him. The hobbies I'd given up because he said they made me look distracted. I'd been so focused on being the perfect girlfriend that I'd forgotten how to be a person. And for what? So he could chase the first woman who made him feel like a penthouse view. I picked up my journal and wrote one sentence across a blank page. I am not anyone's backup plan. I'm the whole damn system. The next morning I went running longer this time. Every stride felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The air was crisp, my lungs burned, but in the best way. At the end of the path, the river shimmered under the morning sun. For the first time, I noticed how beautiful it was. I'd lived in this city for 5 years and never stopped to actually look at it. Justin always hated the cold, so we never went out early. Now I could. Later that week, I joined a local art class. It was something I used to love before I met him, sketching, painting. Losing track of time and color and shape. The instructor, an older woman named Nora, leaned over my shoulder and said, "You have steady hands. That comes from someone who's been through storms." I smiled faintly. You have no idea. By the end of the class, I'd painted something that surprised me, a cracked teacup glued back together with gold. When Nora saw it, she nodded. "Kintsugi," she said. "In Japan, they repair broken pottery with gold to show that the break is part of its history. More beautiful for having been broken." I traced the golden lines with my fingertip and whispered exactly. That night, as I was folding laundry, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Unknown. "Hey, Lena, it's me. I miss you. Can we talk?" My stomach didn't drop this time. My hands didn't shake. I stared at the message for 10 seconds, long enough to register the audacity, the predictability, the absolute nerve. Then I pressed block. No hesitation, no second guessing, just digital silence. I put my phone down, turned off the lights, and let the darkness feel like peace, not loneliness. Because this time it really was. In bed, I couldn't help but smile at the thought that somewhere out there, Justin was probably sitting in his messy apartment wondering how his backup plan had learned to vanish without a trace. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I whispered into the quiet, "Good luck finding your next lifeline." The city outside my window hummed soft, distant, indifferent. Exactly how I liked it. Peace didn't disappear overnight, it eroded, one text at a time. After I blocked Justin's number, the silence lasted a week. 7 blissful days of breathing freely, of running at sunrise, of waking up without dread. I thought the chapter was sealed, until the cracks began to show. It started small, a no-caller ID ringing at 2 a.m., then an email from an unknown address. Subject, "I just want to talk. Please." I deleted it. 2 days later, another. Subject, "You don't understand, Lena. I messed up." I didn't reply. When the third came through, "You can't ignore me forever." I didn't even open it. Because that's what you do with junk mail. You don't argue with spam, you delete it. By the second week, Justin Cole had entered his repentance era. He texted Mia hoping she'd pass along his messages. She didn't. He posted vague quotes on social media about losing the best thing in his life. I ignored them. He even tried to DM my art account under a fake username, pretending to be a fan of my sketches. His first comment read, "Beautiful art. Do you ever draw people you miss?" I blocked that too, but he wasn't done. He never was. One evening, I came home from class to find Mia pacing by the window. Her face told me, before her words did, "Lena, he was outside." My heart skipped. Outside. He was waiting by the building entrance. Said he just wanted 5 minutes. I dropped my bag. "What did you tell him?" "That you'd call the cops if he didn't leave." "Did he?" She nodded, but not confidently. "Eventually. But he looked bad, like he hasn't slept in days." I exhaled steady but cold. Then insomnia suits him. Still that night I locked the door twice. And I wrote his name in my notebook, not as a person, but as a warning label. Justin Cole exhibits withdrawal symptoms from control. Handle with distance. Days later, the phone rang again, a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello, Lena." His voice, quiet, shaky, familiar enough to freeze me. I stayed silent. "Please don't hang up. I know you hate me. I know I deserve that. But I need you to know I'm sorry." I took a deep breath. "Then you got what you wanted, Justin." "What?" My silence. And I hung up. I sat there for a long moment, phone still in my hand, pulse steady. The part of me that once craved closure felt nothing. Because closure doesn't come from conversations. It comes from walking away and not looking back. A few days later, he tried again through his friend Lucas, the one who always called me too sensitive. Lucas showed up at my office, waiting by the elevator like a bad smell. "Hey, Margaret." "Lucas." He gave me a sheepish smile. "Look, I know you don't want to talk to him, but he's a mess. He's not eating, not sleeping, barely working. You were good for him, you know." I raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly was he for me?" He hesitated. "He made mistakes, sure, but come on, everyone does. Maybe just meet him once. For closure." I smiled, that polite, frozen kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Tell Justin I already had my closure. He just wasn't invited to it." Lucas's face fell. He really regrets what he did. "Then maybe he should paint it on a wall and stare at it." I walked past him and didn't look back. But Justin didn't take hints he never had. The night it truly escalated, the sky was heavy with rain. I'd just finished sketching at my desk when the building intercom buzzed. "Hello." A pause. Then Lena, "It's me." My pulse froze. "How did you—" "I just needed to see you. Please, 2 minutes, that's all." I looked toward the window. Through the raindrops on the glass, a dark figure stood under the streetlight, drenched, shivering, holding something in his hand. A bouquet. Once that gesture would have broken me. Now it felt almost laughable. "Justin," I said into the speaker, my tone calm, detached. "You're trespassing." "Please, I'm calling the police." "You're serious." "Dead serious." His voice cracked. "Lena, I love you. I made a mistake. She meant nothing. You're the one." I pressed the intercom button again, cutting the line mid-sentence. My hands didn't shake as I called the front desk. "This is Margaret Rivers, apartment 307. There's a man outside violating a no-contact request. Please handle it." "Understood, Ms. Rivers," the security guard replied. I walked back to my window, watching as the guard approached him. Justin tried to argue, gesturing wildly. The rain blurred his face into streaks of gray and gold beneath the light. He looked small. But pity was a luxury I no longer afforded him. When he finally disappeared into the dark, I exhaled slowly and whispered to myself, "You can't resurrect what's already been deleted." That night I couldn't sleep, but not from fear, from relief. Because I'd realized something profound. Justin wasn't haunting me anymore. He was haunting the ghost of the woman I used to be. And she didn't live here anymore. The next morning I woke to a soft knock on my bedroom door. Mia's voice came through, quiet but urgent. "Lena, he's back." I opened the door, still half asleep. "What?" "Downstairs. Security called. He's sitting in his car across the street." For a moment, I just stood there, heartbeat steady, mind perfectly clear. That calm that comes right before you act. "All right," I said. "Then we're doing this officially." The courthouse smelled like old paper and resignation. The clerk barely blinked when I handed over my stack of screenshots, call logs, and messages. She'd seen this story before, the persistent ex who mistook boundaries for invitations. It didn't take long. By the afternoon, the judge reviewed the evidence and approved a temporary restraining order. When the papers were served to him, I was told Justin looked stunned. Not sorry, not heartbroken, just offended. As if the world had no right to deny him access to the woman he once owned like a keepsake. But that was the thing about Justin, he always confused possession with love. For the first time in weeks, I slept deeply, the kind of sleep that doesn't shatter under the weight of what if. The next morning, sunlight poured through the window. It didn't feel symbolic or cinematic. It just felt normal. And normal was better than heaven. I brewed coffee, sketched a little, and wrote a line in my journal. Peace doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be protected. Justin's public image, however, was unraveling fast. I didn't follow him, but Mia did for safety reasons, she said. One evening, she showed me a post he'd made. People love to paint you as the villain when they can't control the narrative. Some of us just loved too hard. 100 comments from his friends and followers flooded in. Sympathy, confusion, validation. I stared at the screen for a moment, then said, "He's performing." Mia raised an eyebrow. Performing what exactly? Regret. It's his favorite role. The tragic hero in a story he wrote himself. I handed her back the phone and smiled faintly. Let him have his stage. I've retired from his play. 2 days later, I got an email from an unknown sender. The subject line, "You win." I didn't open it. I didn't need to. That right there was my revenge. Not in confrontation. Not in making him suffer. It was in silence. Silence is what narcissists fear the most, because it means you no longer exist in their universe. Weeks passed. I threw myself into my art, my work, my morning runs. The emptiness inside me started to feel less like loss and more like room space to rebuild. One afternoon, as I was packing up after class, my instructor Nora came over. "You've changed," she said, her voice soft but certain. "You paint differently now." "How so?" I asked. "You've stopped drawing what hurt you. You've started painting what heals you." That sentence lingered with me all evening, because she was right. I spent that night painting a single image, a window rain outside and sunlight beginning to break through. No people, no faces, just freedom. When I finished, I wrote 3 words at the bottom corner in tiny gold ink. "Peace is louder." Justin's last attempt came a month later. A thick envelope slid under my apartment door, my name scrawled across the front. Inside was a handwritten letter. The first words made my chest tighten, not from love, but from disbelief. I finally understand what I lost. He wrote about missing my laugh, my calm, the way I balanced him. He said Tessa was toxic, that she'd used him, that he deserved another chance. Every line reeked of manipulation, disguised as self-pity. Every sentence was another thread in the web he'd always tried to spin. I read it once quietly. Then I tore it in half. Then in half again. Each rip felt like a closing door. When I was done, I slid the pieces into the trash and whispered to the empty room. "You don't get to understand me after you erased me." The restraining order stayed in place. The silence remained intact. But for the first time, it wasn't defensive silence. It was earned silence, sacred, deliberate. And that silence was my revenge. Because while Justin kept trying to get a reaction, I had already moved on to a life that no longer included him in any capacity, not as a memory, not even as a scar. That night, I met Mia on the balcony. The city lights flickered below, and she handed me a mug of tea. So she said, smiling softly, "Does it feel over now?" I thought for a moment. "Not over," I said. "Just irrelevant." Mia grinned. "That's better than over." And it was, because over means it still mattered once. Irrelevant means it never will again. The night it truly ended was quiet, the kind of stillness that only comes after too many storms. I was on the couch reading a cup of chamomile tea cooling beside me when the intercom buzzed. My first thought was, Mia, maybe she forgot her keys again. But when I pressed the button and heard his voice, all the air left the room. "Lena, it's me." "Justin." Even through the static, I recognized that voice, too soft, too careful, as if trying to sound harmless. I didn't speak. I just listened to the sound of rain tapping against the window. "Please," he said, his breath shaky. "I just need you to hear me. 2 minutes, that's all I'm asking." I closed my book, my heartbeat steady but cold. "You're violating a court order, Justin." He let out a bitter laugh. "You really called the cops on me, didn't you? After everything we had." I pressed the button again, my tone flat. "You stopped being my everything the night you made me your backup plan." His voice cracked. "You think you're better than me now, huh? You think you've moved on." "No," I said. "I know I have." There was a pause, then the sound of something breaking, a sob maybe, or a laugh disguised as one. "You can't erase me, Lena," he said, his tone trembling between anger and desperation. "You can't just delete people like files." That word delete made me almost smile. "I didn't delete you, Justin," I said quietly. "You corrupted yourself." Then I pressed the intercom again, cutting him off. Minutes later, the building guard called. "Ms. Rivers. He said he's still here. I've warned him to leave, but he's refusing. Shall I contact the police?" "Yes," I said simply. My voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. It was just factual. Like I was confirming a dinner reservation. Through the window, I could see the flashing blue and red lights reflect against the rain-soaked street. 2 officers stepped out, approaching the entrance where Justin stood drenched and defiant. He gestured wildly, shouting something I couldn't hear. One officer raised a hand, showing him a piece of paper, likely the restraining order. His shoulders dropped. The fight left his body all at once. They spoke for a few minutes before guiding him toward the squad car. He didn't look up at my window. He didn't have to. Because the woman who used to look back, she didn't live here anymore. When the car disappeared down the street, the city fell silent again. The kind of silence that hums a live protective final. I turned off the intercom, closed the blinds, and stood there for a moment, hands pressed against the cool glass. Then I whispered softly to myself like a benediction. The backup plan has been permanently deleted. The following days passed quietly. I went to work. I painted. I ran in the mornings. My life moved forward. And every once in a while, when a notification buzzed or a memory tried to crawl back in, I reminded myself of something I'd written months ago in my journal. Closure isn't about them understanding what they lost. It's about you remembering what you deserve. A few weeks later, I was sitting at my art class when Nora approached again. "You've been painting light lately," she said with a knowing smile. "Yeah," I admitted. "I guess darkness finally ran out of space." She studied the canvas, a figure standing by a window, rain outside, sunlight spilling in. The colors were warm, steady, alive. "What's it called?" she asked. I smiled. Peace after all. That night, I walked home alone, the city lights reflecting on wet pavement. The same street where Justin once shouted my name now felt transformed, softer, cleaner. I passed the spot where he used to wait, the shadow that once terrified me. It was just empty sidewalk now. A space reclaimed. At home, I brewed tea and opened my notebook, the same one that had once held heartbreak, guilt, and anger. On a blank page, I wrote, "You don't have to hate someone to let them go. You just have to love yourself enough to stop looking back." I closed the book, feeling the weight of finality settle gently, not heavy, not sharp, just done. Outside, thunder rumbled faintly in the distance, but it didn't sound threatening anymore. It sounded like applause. For survival, for closure, for peace. So when people ask me what happened, why I never went back, why I never answered, I tell them the truth. Because when someone calls you their backup plan, you learn to build a new system. One where you're the only priority. One that no longer crashes when they walk away. And when that system finally stabilizes, you don't reboot the virus. You keep it deleted.